Thank you so much for watching. Now, this, of course, we've not talked about Nancy Guthrie for quite a long time because we've been concentrating on the Preston Davy case. And I feel with this case, like Preston Davy's case, the little baby, that was murdered by his horrible adoptive so-called fathers. I think that's the most upsetting case that I've ever covered. And Nancy's case, which is also upsetting because Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, vulnerable from the different end of the age spectrum. Preston was vulnerable because he was a baby. Nancy was vulnerable because of her elderly status. Um, but a lot of, it has been very distressing to think that an old lady can be sort of just lying in her own bed and in the middle of the night, a masked man comes in, that let's have a look at the photos again. It's terrifying actually. That you can literally, I mean, how much of a low risk lifestyle that you just at home asleep in bed, you know, can't get much more low risk than that, can you? And that's what Nancy was doing, apparently. She was asleep at home in bed, and this person, whoever it is, who still has not been identified, and this all happened in January. This has been months in Arizona, in the USA, in Tucson. This person still, we don't know who it is. We don't know what happened to Nancy. We don't know if she's dead, if she's alive. Ransom notes supposedly were sent, but were they though? I think the ransom notes are decoys, like to throw people, to make it look as if she was kidnapped, but I don't think she was kidnapped. I think whoever went in there for Nancy, they went to take her away and kill her. I think that was, personally, that's my opinion. I can only give my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. I think the whole kidnap thing is staged. And I don't doubt that the kidnap notes exist, but I don't think there was ever a kidnap. I think they're just to throw off law enforcement, to make them think she was kidnapped. Don't believe it. Really don't. Anyway, let me know what you think, of course, because everyone's got their views on this case, like all of them. So, thank you for caring about Nancy. Thank you for caring about all the cases that I talk about. They're all important. All the victims are important, of course, aren't they? So Nancy disappeared at the end of January. Yeah, she went for the night before she disappeared. She was at her daughter Annie's house and her husband Tommaso, and they have a child, and it was a games night. Now, we don't know much about the games night, what games they played. We really, we've been given a timeline, haven't we? So apparently, um, what happened was she got an Uber to Annie and Tommaso's house, which is only round the corner. Let's put a picture up of Annie and Tommaso. So Nancy has 3 children, adult children, of course, because she's 84 years old. So this is Annie and her husband Tommaso, and they live just around the corner from Nancy. And they've come under a lot of scrutiny for the obvious reason that she was at their house the night before she disappeared. So, who's always the prime suspect? Whoever it was saw the missing person last, isn't it? So they've come under a lot of suspicion, but Sheriff Nanos, the sheriff of Pima County, who we all know how reliable he is, he isn't. He says all the family have been cleared. All the family and their spouses have been cleared. So, we're supposed to just accept that and think, oh, it can't be anything to do with Annie and Tommaso, even though they were the last people to see her. So apparently Nancy got an Uber to their house for the games night. Then Tommaso brought her home, saw her going through the garage door. Then he went home, and boom, during the night, Nancy disappeared into a puff of smoke, like abracadabra. 1 minute she was there, then she was gone. So that's what we do know for certain. What's happened is she disappeared. We don't know what happened to her. We don't know who took her. We don't know if she's alive. We don't know if she's dead. But one thing we just know for certain is we don't know where she is. Now, then, of course, this is door cam footage that was recuperated by the FBI. I'm still not sure that these are the same person, you know. I'm not sure that it looks like the same person sort of from the waist down. I don't know, is this one more heavy set than the other? Anyway, again, we just don't know. We literally do not know who this person is, but they were hanging around Nancy's because they were captured on these photos. So who was it? Nobody's come forward to say it was them. So we have to presume, you know, it's suspect. So as I say, one of Nancy's adult children is Annie, who is married to Tommaso. Tommaso is a teacher. Annie is a poet. Of course, she's a very sort of artistic, you know, we've heard some of her poetry. It's quite dark, but, you know, that's what Annie does. She's a creative person, let's say. Then, of course, another of Nancy's children is Savannah, as she is the famous child. So, because she's a host on a morning show in America, a very well-known morning show. She also, interestingly enough, she did interview the Epstein victims like Virginia Guthrie and other girls. So she's got an Epstein connection, which some people think might be important. But she lives in New York. She miles away from Nancy in Tucson. But that's Savannah. And she's taken the lead in most of the family appeals for what happened to Nancy. Then, of course, this Cameron. We don't know much about Cameron. Where was he when all this happened? I don't think we really know. There's a lot of talk about the guest house. Was Cameron in the guest house? You know, there's lots of speculation about lots of things in this case, isn't there? But again, things that we know for certain is some ransom notes were sent, but they weren't sent to the family or to the police, where ransom notes are normally sent. They were sent to the media, like to places like TMZ, which basically at the end of the day is a gossip magazine, Hollywood gossip, you know. So to me, those kidnap messages, ransom notes, whether you believe they're genuine or not, they were sent to create the maximum impact, maximum publicity. They, you know, most kidnappers normally they don't want to put their heads above the parapet like that. You know, they'll send a ransom note to the family, and they'll even say to the family, don't say anything to the police or your loved one is dead. And if they do send it to the police, you know, they certainly don't want the media getting hold of it. Most kidnappers don't want attention. But it seems evident that this kidnapper did want attention because he or she or group of people, you know, sent these kidnap emails to media outlets, not only TMZ, but local news stations, etc. And the other very weird thing about this case is the FBI have not tracked them down. I think that's a real surprise, don't you? The FBI, with all their resources, they cannot track down who sent these emails. Just seems odd to me. Apparently, they came from different IP addresses, um, but it's believed that they are from the same person. And that's what we're going to look at, because just sort of over the last couple of days, it's been announced what the contents of those ransom letters were, the actual wording. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Hey, Louise. Good morning. So, we're saying that Preston Davies case is probably the saddest case that I've ever dealt with, or the most distressing case. Nancy's case is the most mysterious to me, the weirdest case. There's so much in Nancy's case. Well, it's a bit like Nicola Bulley, isn't it? There's so much that just doesn't make sense. You can't make sense of it. You've got to think, why? Even if the kidnapper knew that Savannah had money because she's famous, and could put up perhaps quite a big ransom demand, well, she said there is a $1 million reward, well, more than $1 million on offer, but nobody's come forward. I just think the whole thing is really weird. I don't think it was a kidnap. I think we're supposed to think it was a kidnapping. That's the direction that they're trying to lead the police down, to detract from what really happened to Nancy. I think it's a very personal thing. I'm not saying it's something to do with the family, but it's somebody who knew Nancy. They were comfortable around her house. But I think they went for Nancy to kill her. Personally, I don't think it was a ransom or a robbery gone wrong. I think it was, in my opinion, again, in my opinion, and it is only my opinion, I think it was just a deliberate murder of Nancy Guthrie. And all the ransom things are decoys to lead the police off. I mean, what do you do if you're you think about it, if you want to murder somebody and get away with it, what's the best thing to do is to lead the law enforcement in a completely different direction. So they're thinking it's a kidnap, but really it was you because you want her money, or you owe her money, you didn't want to pay it back, or whatever the reason is. I don't know what the reason is, obviously. But I think someone had it, and they're covering it up by pretending it's a kidnapping. That would be my working hypothesis on the case. Anyway, let me know what you think, of course. Morning, sir. Hello. Do you agree? And I know a lot of you will agree, and some of you will say different. The other thing that is so strange about this case, because there's so many strange things, of course. See now, there's a lot of talk that she may have been taken over the border to Mexico, because it's only up the road, isn't it? But there's been no appeals in Spanish. No appeals over in Mexico. What? In fact, there's been very few appeals at all. If that was my mum, I would be out there every day trying to talk to people and saying, have you seen this woman anywhere? I mean, nobody seems to be really looking for Nancy, except YouTubers and, independent groups. And then they're getting arrested, because the other thing is the neighbours don't want anybody around, and the sheriff's department, they've got so much crime in Pima County. I've been looking into it. It's one of the most dangerous places you can imagine. So there's drug crime, there's burglaries, there's murders. ear off, arresting YouTubers for taking a video. You know, it seems like they find sheriff's deputies to go do that, not keep crime off the street or stop an 84-year woman from being abducted, or even now find out who did it. And the other thing that I found while I was just researching for this video, if you go onto the sheriff's website, Sheriff of Pima County's website, there is a mention of Nancy Guthrie. Not a peep. No appeal. No, oh, contact us if you know something. Nothing. It's like Nancy Guthrie never existed and she hasn't really disappeared. I find it's very strange. Very, very strange. Why is she not? Why is it not on their website? There's other cases are on there. And of course, we've got Sheriff Moss as well, who is, of course, you know, not brilliant. He said recently, technical difficulties have held this case back. And then, of course, he didn't send the DNA to the, you know, they have got one hair that they're working on. He apparently didn't send it to the FBI lab. There's arguments between him and the FBI, and you know, there's been so much drama around this case, and now they're trying to get rid of him. They're trying to get rid of him and not doing a very good job of it at the moment. Perhaps they should take a leaf out of Andy Burnham and Wes Streeton's book. They seem to get rid of Keir Starmer pretty easily. But he's sticky, he's like super glue, this guy, he's not going anywhere. Sheriff Nanos is getting all this criticism, and he's no way he's resigning, he's sticking it out. He's just, you know, he's just like, no way he's going anywhere. But he doesn't seem to want to talk about Nancy, so now it's being said that he said himself, it's not being said, he actually said in his own words, he doesn't talk to the Guthrie family anymore. That's odd, isn't it? He doesn't have any contact with the Guthrie family. Why is that? No, sure, I know the FBI are dealing with it as well, but you think you think every now and again they'd at least send them a text and say, look, we're doing all we can and we're sure we'll find something out soon. But no, he has no contact anymore with the Guthrie family. So the whole thing is the weirdest case, honestly, to me. If they think she's in Mexico, why aren't they putting out appeals in Spanish? Why aren't they, you know, looking for Nancy? Anyway, poor Nancy, you know, because I think whatever, as I say, the one thing that we do know for certain is Nancy's disappeared, don't we? We know that for certain. We don't know if she's dead. We don't know if she's alive. We don't know if she was kidnapped. We don't know if she was targeted because somebody owes her money and didn't want to pay it back. Or listen, if she has been murdered, there's only a very small what's the word, repertoire for why people murder. There's actually very few reasons why people murder. And of course, money, sex, I suppose mental health you might include in it. What else? Oh, custody battles over children are a common basis for murders. You know, there's not many motives for murder. You know, I suppose pure spite might be one, revenge. You know, but yeah, it's not like you've got 20 different reasons why somebody might commit murder. And with someone of Nancy's age, I mean, it could have had an sex motive. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. But I think it was a money motive, 100%. Either somebody owed Nancy money or somebody has benefited in some way because Nancy has died. You know, that's what I think. But as I say, it's just my opinion. I don't think she's in Mexico. I think she's probably quite close by to where she disappeared from. So there have been rumours. Last was about a week ago. Because there's been a lot of anonymous tips. Anonymous tip. Oh, Nancy's buried in Mexico. So this bloody wild goose chase then. With these voluntary search teams going and searching the area where this anonymous person has says that Nancy is buried. Now, you think about it. I could have made that phone call. What, somebody rings up an anonymous tip line, an anonymous person says, oh, Nancy's buried in, I don't know, in New York City in such and such. What, you can't take, because very sadly, it is a sad fact, there's a lot of, nutters out there who will do things like that. You can't believe that anybody would phone up and say, oh, yeah, Nancy's buried over the border in Mexico, in Nogales, I think it was, when she wasn't. You can't believe that anyone would do that, but people do it. People confess to crimes they've never even done. They try and mess up investigations. And there has been sightings of her. You know what I mean? It's like, so Louise is asking me, Vicky, does Nancy's daughter have any ideas? Has she spoken? No. So the only daughter, well, they haven't said what they think has happened to Nancy. Savannah did say that she thought 2 of the kidnap notes were genuine. But she's probably saying that because that's what the FBI has said to her. Now, I think they're genuine in a way. I think those kidnap notes do come from whoever is responsible for what's happened to Nancy. But I just don't believe it's a kidnap. I think they were sent to, like, as red herrings. That's what I think. And I'm just surprised the FBI haven't been able to trace back where they came from. So they've come from somebody who's very internet, tech savvy, to be able to fool the FBI, to be able to use IP addresses that they can hide so well. The FBI can't. They've got to be quite sort of clever as far as technology is concerned, haven't they? Now, let me try and figure out. So let's read these. So what they're saying now is these kidnap notes, they're coming out with actually what was contained in it. And very strange again. They just don't sound like kidnap notes to me from hardened gang members. You know what I mean? They're like, wait till you hear them. So apparently the first thing, and then the second kidnap note, apparently, or email, these were emails that were sent, as I say, to TMZ and the local news channels, not to the family, not to the police. The second one said she was dead. She died by accident, that they hadn't realised how frail she was. Now, this was, I'm going to read you this BBC, but this was actually on Sky News as well. So nobody's talked about Nancy Guthrie over in the UK anyway, or, for quite a while, but this has brought the interest up. So if nothing else, if it brings Nancy's name back into the headlines, that's good. So no, they can't trace the Bitcoin wallets either, Sarah. They can't trace them. They haven't been able to trace them. So they found one guy, didn't they? There was one guy who sent a ransom note, and they've arrested him. He's coming up probably for his trial soon. But I don't think he was thought to be the one that had sent these other two notes. But yeah, no, they haven't traced them either. So this person, whoever it is, they are quite clever, really, aren't they? Because they've managed to escape capture since January. They've managed to, not be traced back through their email addresses or the Bitcoin wallets. So they must know a little bit about, computers and things. So, I wouldn't have a clue how to hide my IP address. The only way I'd know how to do it, I suppose you can do it with a VPN, can't you? I do know that much, but I think it's got to be more than, to hide it from the FBI. You might be able to hide your VPN address, your IP address from someone like me quite easily, because I wouldn't know where to look anyway. But how can you hide it from the FBI? I just don't know. Hi, Darren. Morning. Yeah, maybe we've got too high an opinion of the FBI. We just think, oh, well, the FBI will find out who it is. But maybe there are some things that they just really can't do, so strange, isn't it? So let me just read for you what apparently these ransom notes said. So a ransom note sent days. So the other weird things was ransom left at the house. They took Nancy. The ransom note didn't arrive till a couple of days later, and it claims, the second one claims she had died. The note was at one of two. This is the BBC I'm reading off. The note was one of two addressed to Nancy Guthrie's family and sent to news media in the days after her January kidnapping. The first one demanded millions in Bitcoin for her release, but the second one stated she had died. According to sources cited by US media, the note from the possible kidnappers reportedly stated they did not mean for her to die, and they included an apology to the family. So the Pima County Sheriff's Department declined to comment on the contents of the notes, but they said the investigation remains active and ongoing. And they said the Pima County Sheriff's Department continues to work closely with the FBI as investigators follow up on leads, review information, and pursue the facts surrounding this case, they said. So the BBC has contacted the FBI, and I don't know what they had to say. Let's see. The BBC's US partner CBS and other outlets reported on Monday that law enforcement... All right, where's the baby? I was just explaining earlier, if you've only just come in, our German Shepherd, she's going through a phantom pregnancy. She thinks she's got a baby. And she gets sort of, go and put her down somewhere. She's carrying this ball around with her that she thinks is a baby, and she's thinking of where to put it, where it'll be safe. So the BBC US partner CBS and other outlets reported on Monday that law enforcement had requested that media hold off publishing details of the notes while they investigated Nancy's disappearance. But I think then now they must have said, yeah, you can give the details, because I'm sure they wouldn't have given the details, would they, unless the FBI were okay with it. Let me just share this article. I just think it is the really strangest of strange cases. How can it take all this time? How could she just be taken away and no car on CCTV or anyway. I don't know. It's a weird one, all right. It's definitely a weird one. Sorry. So an initial ransom note was sent the day after she went missing and demanded millions in Bitcoin. And that gave specific details about her home, as well as details about her bedroom and the home's surroundings. So this is why I think part of the reason why it's thought to be genuine, because it had details of Nancy's home. Now, I do think it was a genuine. I think the person who sent that note knows what's happened to Nancy. I just don't believe it was ever a kidnap. I think they're saying that to try and throw the police off. That's what I think. Anyway, it was sent to multiple media outlets, including a local TV station, which did adhere to a police request not to disclose its contents. But it has now emerged that a second note sent on the 6th of February used language similar to the first one, but it did not include any demands. Instead, it apologised for her death and stated it was inadvertent. And after those two notes, Savannah Guthrie and her siblings released a video to the kidnappers. Do you remember that video when the three of them were sat there and Savannah was holding her siblings' hands and it said, "Oh, we've received your note. We understand. Please return our mother to us so we can celebrate with her." That was that one. Oh, look, they're listing it here. "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us." And she said, "This is very valuable to us." Do you remember that? And she said, "We will pay." Let's have a look at this video. No, it's a very weird case, this. So, for my two pennyworth, exactly what's happened to Nancy. I think they took Nancy, they've killed Nancy, and they've sent these notes to muddy the water. That's what I think. And of course they'll know the layout of Nancy's bedroom because they know Nancy. They've took her from that bedroom. Oh, this is not going to load up, is it? Oh, right. I'll go on and read. Well, now another strange thing. So the second so when I did the where's my phone? Hold the phone. When I did the well, for money mostly. They've done it for money. There's we don't know the motive yet, but there'll be money in it somewhere, you mark my words. It's either money or maybe they've got a grudge against Nancy for a reason that we might not even know about. It could be anything. Listen, I've watched enough true crime. I've seen people been murdered just because they've come out a job that they've had done at their house that didn't turn out right. I've seen quite a few like that. So these workmen have gone back to the house later and murdered them because they complained about it, or they threatened to complain about it, or they said they would go to the police about them, or they said it could be anything. Any reason whatsoever, couldn't it, really? But I personally think it's to do with money. It's only an opinion. If people have different theories, that's fine. Just my theory. Trying to get one here. Just my theory. I wanted to put something on here and I've forgotten what I wanted to put on it. I wanted to put an emoji. Anyway, never mind. Yeah, there was that as well, Sarah. So a lot of people think it's to do with Savannah, because on Savannah's morning programme, which is very famous and popular, she showed Nancy on there many times. Not only that time just before Nancy disappeared, but she'd been on it before, hadn't she? So people knew who Nancy was. So if somebody was obsessed with Savannah, as people do get obsessed with famous people, maybe it was something to do with that. And then, of course, Savannah had interviewed the Epstein victims. Some people think it's to do with the Epstein files. I wouldn't be surprised. Anything in this mad world, it might be. I've given up being surprised by things that I hear about in this crazy world. I'm just living in a parallel universe all the time, to be honest. Yeah. People who go into your house and do work, God, they're in the most intimate position. They get the layout of your house, and old people, when they're lonely, I mean, I don't know that Nancy was lonely, I'm just saying it's a possibility. They tell people all sorts of things that maybe they shouldn't. And if they've got dementia, maybe even more so. But even if they haven't got dementia, they are very vulnerable. They are lonely, they do talk to people, tell them things, they might tell them to there's been a lot of talk about a safe, wasn't there? About was there a safe, Nancy? Did she have valuables? Had she mentioned that? And you know what? She may not even be mentioning it to the person. If she says to, I don't know, say she gets someone, say she has a pedicure. Somebody comes to give her a pedicure at home, and they're chatting, and then that pedicurist goes home and says to her family or his family, husband, wife, or they're sat in a bar talking about it. Oh, guess whose feet I did today? It was Savannah, Savannah Guthrie from the Today Show. I did her mum's feet. She lives there in that big house all on her own. She must be really lonely. Oh my God. And she's one of those people, she don't believe in banks, keeps all the money under a mattress. We just don't know. Loose lips cost. It may not be the actual person. It may be that somebody overheard them talking about Nancy. So I don't know. Yeah, well, good. I think that's a good idea, Miss Lee. Well, she didn't have, did she? She had no dog, even though the alarm system. It's only because the FBI have been at these photos up, isn't it? Oh, that's what I was looking for. I've just remembered what I was looking for now. Yeah, that's a good point. She paid in cash, and I've seen true crime videos like that where people have gone off to get the money to pay someone, and that person's followed them in, whacked them over the head, and stole their money. Yeah, buried with nature. So this is apparently the second. Some note said, Nancy's dead. Apologies. We didn't realise how ill she was, and she is buried with nature. So are you trying to tell me that some kidnap gang, are going to come out with a phrase like that? That she's buried with nature. Sounds more like fanning the embers of hope, doesn't it? It's a bit more, it's like a poem, isn't it? What a strange thing for a hardened gang member, kidnapped a woman, maybe from a Mexican gang, as you know, these are just various theories people's put out. Are they really going to say, yeah, she's buried with nature now? Just doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, poet, exactly. And who's a poet connected to this case? Annie is the poet, isn't she? Sounds just like one of her poems. Now, that I'm not saying it is. So this is, just want to make this clear. Still, though, I think it's odd. And you know what's the other thing that I think is odd? Why has this been released now, all these months later? So for these media outlets to suddenly give out now, the actual details of what was said in these ransom notes, why? They must have had permission from the FBI. I believe for a minute they've just decided to release these off their own back because, they could get into trouble for jeopardizing an investigation. I feel this is all deliberate. I don't know. I've thought it for a little while now. I feel like the FBI maybe think they know who did it. That's why they're not looking for Nancy. Is that why they're not putting appeals out in Spanish over the Mexican border? Because they know full well she's not there. This, or are they just crap? To me, there's two things. It's either they already think they know who did it, or they're just so rubbish they can't be arsed looking for Nancy. I don't know. But it feels like it must be one of those two things. But this saying, oh, she's buried with nature, that to me just sounds like when Annie said, or when Savannah said, that Annie had said, oh, what did she say? We're clinging on to the ends of hope. She even had to make a poetic thing there when she's talking about, an appeal for a mum going missing. She's quite dramatic, isn't she? Everything's drama and she's creative, but it's dark. We've on my channel there's videos about her poetry. It's very dark poetry. Yeah. She is buried with nature. I just don't feel a gang member is going to say that. I don't think they would say anything about where she was buried. I don't think that they would send a note saying, oh, we're so sorry, but she's dead. You just never hear from them again. Would they really, if someone really had kidnapped Nancy for a ransom and then she died, you'd never hear from them again. They're not going to risk getting caught by sending a second email, are they? If they got away with it the first time, are they going to really risk it and send another email apologising and saying she's buried with nature? Really weird, this case. So that's what I think. So I wanted to come on and tell you about it, but that is my opinion. Obviously, please leave me what you think about where Nancy is. People have got different ideas. Now, I just want to show you this now, which is the website of Sheriff Nanos of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And I'm just wondering why on this website there is no mention whatsoever of Nancy. No mention. And in fact, I searched Nancy on this website. Up in the search engine there at the top. Pima County Sheriff's Department. I put in a search for Nancy Guthrie and it came up, your search did not match any results. So this is the most high profile case that Pima County has ever seen. Everybody wants to know what's happened to Nancy. everyone across America and even worldwide. This case has grabbed everyone's attention, and on the Pima County Sheriff's Department website, there's nothing. I even looked on the cold cases. They've got all cold cases on there. Nothing. But anyway, I put a search in of her name in. I mean, don't you think that's odd? Or is it just me? You know, you're talking about, as I say, probably the most high profile case that Pima County has ever covered. And there's nothing on the website, not even a photo of Nancy or a phone number if you've got any information. It just all seems weird to me. Right, let me just come and have a look at the chat, make sure I haven't missed anyone. Very odd. This whole case is odd. Very strange case. We are the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Nancy Guthrie does not exist as far as we're concerned. Anyway, I've been listening to a couple of other podcasts about Pima County Sheriff's Department. Do you know, even just last week, they had a death in custody. They have got a really high level of people dying when they're in custody of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I mean, all different reasons. I'm not saying they're battered to death, but, you know, self-deletion, drug overdose. One, I think, was killed by another prisoner. They're not very good in Pima County. They're crapo. So they've got this huge fentanyl problem where people are taking fentanyl at bus stops and, you know, in full view of people driving by. They've got robberies. They've got now Nancy being abducted. They've got really high levels of crime. I'm so glad I don't live there, that's for sure. You know, and then they're off arresting YouTubers for taking a video as if that was even important. You know, neighbours phoning them up and saying, "Oh, get these YouTubers out of our neighbourhood. They're not doing anything illegal." Might be irritating, but you can't arrest people for being irritating. Bloody hell, you'd be locking up half the population, if not 3/4. So it's very, you know, it's like nobody wants any attention on Nancy. It's like the only people that are giving attention to Nancy are the streamers and the YouTubers, etc. I mean, even her own family aren't talking about her. I mean, where's the appeals? You know, they did those few appeals in the beginning. But where are they now saying, you know, bring our mum home or tell us where she is? You do one video and that's it. This whole thing is weird. And, you know, there has been times I've said it because the family don't give a shit if you talk about it or not. In fact, it's thought to be, isn't it, that it's probably Annie and Tommaso. That, you know, that people had taken flowers and this memorial had grown outside Nancy's, etc. They keep being taken away. Every time anyone lays new flowers or new tribute, they get taken away again. Who's taking them? Who's taking them away? Nobody's going on the premises, you know, the streamers and everything. They're just sitting in the road. It's public road. but you know, be dropped off there, and the police are there. Like Sable being arrested for taking a video. Come on. Whether you agree with them or not, whether you like Alex or you don't like him, whether it's not about that. What it is you can't arrest someone for taking a video on a public road. Personally, yeah, and you know what? And I'm always trying not to look sideways at Annie and Tommaso, because you know they're bound to be looked at, because they were the last people to see her. But their behaviour's odd, isn't it? You know, they're not. It's to me, while a case is still open of your loved one missing or whatever, you would welcome any media until your loved one is found, of course. Once they're found, yeah, you do want privacy then to grieve, or to do, you know, or to, if they're lucky enough to be still alive, you know, to sort of reconnect and everything in privacy. But while your loved one is missing, to me, I would want every bit of media raising the attention. Where is my mum? Who's got my mum? I don't think it's right to, I think it's strange, let me put it that way, not to want media attention when your mum's missing. I think it's, again, weird. It's all weird. This whole case is weird. Yeah, well, found, yeah, maybe grief, etc. The other families have missing loved ones. They're crying out for attention, crying out for media attention. They complain they don't get any. You know, police aren't interested, the media's not interested. This family's got all the attention, they don't want it. Very weird. You know, as I say, people have been moaning about it. People who have missing loved ones, they're saying, why is our loved one not getting the same attention that that Nancy's getting? But what the police have done now, especially, and the neighbours and that, they've strangled that attention, haven't they? They've sort of they've literally made the YouTubers and streamers stop reporting on it by arresting them every time they turn up there for nothing. I just don't know what you're arresting someone for who just is videoing a gate, setting a public road, videoing a gate or whatever. What's your charge? While there's criminals out there, there's so much crime in that area that, you know, you're not safe. You're not safe in your own bed in the middle of the night. But oh, God forbid somebody should sit and take a video. A streamer should sit and take a video. God, very odd. But what do you think about this? Buried with nature. Do you think that's something a kidnapper would say? Oh yes, unfortunately she died, but she's now. I don't think that's normal language for a kidnapper or a gang member. Buried with nature sounds more like we are fanning the embers of hope. Whatever that other thing that Annie said was. Some, you know, poets aren't members of kidnap gangs, are they? Anyway, that's what I think. That's what I think. So we're carrying on. We just wait for knowledge, wait for something to break. It's I don't know if they'll ever find Nancy. I think there's more planning went into this than we know about. But yeah, Sarah, they are easy targets. Yeah. So look at what they did. So of course there was a load of media there in the beginning, wasn't there? Mainstream media, streamers, YouTubers, sort of random people turning up in bloody black leather shorts, and it was chaos at one point. But then when the war happened, when Trumpy declared war on Iran, all the attention went to the war then. And gradually, sort of day by day, all those media disappeared, didn't they? And all that was left is a few streamers. And that, but gradually, the sheriff's department. So first of all, they made a road where you couldn't park. Oh no! First of all, they made it one way, didn't they? It had to be one just up that road near his house. Then they said you can't park. You've got somewhere else. So some of the media and the streamers, they got round that by either parking up sort of in the town nearby and an Uber. Some people, when not neighbours, don't want them there. There's a way for them to be there. So we're just waiting for. There were some neighbours who were happy for the streamers to be there, and they let them park in their drives. Then what was the next thing? Oh, so now the next thing. Oh, you couldn't sit on the public easement or whatever. Oh, it's just been. Then one of the neighbours, that horrible Sue Ellen woman, she went out and put all cactus and dog shit all over the public easement, which was the only bit that the streamers could sit in that was left of them. She went and did that. Why wasn't she arrested for that? That was my question at the time, and it's still my question. So is that okay then to go and spread dog excrement and cactus all over a public easement? She didn't get arrested. Anyway, but Alex got arrested too. And as I say, doesn't matter whether you think they're good streamers, bad streamers. Some people think they're grifters. They've certainly made a lot of money off their streams, but they're the ones that are sitting there in the heat 24 hours or whatever. But it's not a question of what you think of them. It's a question of, do you believe in freedom of speech or not? That you take a video as long as you're not breaking any laws. They've made Pima counties made up their own laws now. It's like illegal to be a streamer apparently in Pima County. And meanwhile, of course, Sheriff Nanos, he's broke loads of laws, hasn't he? Most notably, lying on his resume and saying he never got suspended when in fact he's been suspended many times for very serious offences. Situation. Poetic statement. Buried with nature. She is now buried with nature. Seems a funny thing for a kidnapper to say to